Amazon MGM has taken full creative control of the James Bond franchise. The 60-year-old series, Greg, which has spanned generations, you know. Your parents love James Bond. Your parents' parents probably like James Bond. He's been played by countless actors. He's had so many iterations. Never had a spinoff. That's noted here in this article. Um, he's one of the more like, I guess, I don't know if cared for is the right term, but I guess sacred is probably the right word I'm looking for here. IPs in Hollywood, because for so long he was managed by the Broccoli family, Wilson and Barbara, or it's Barbara Broccoli and her family, and Michael G. Wilson, who've kind of been like the shepherds of the James Bond franchise for many years. They kind of make all the big decisions, and they just made a big one because they're letting Amazon take the reins on this thing moving forward. So, under the terms of this agreement, as written by the Hollywood Reporter, Amazon MGM Studios will gain creative control of the James Bond franchise, while Wilson and Broccoli will remain co-owners of the 60-year-old property. In 2022, Amazon acquired MGM, including a vast catalog
Yeah.
of more than 4,000 films and 17,000 TV shows. Um, yeah, Greg, I'm curious what you think of this. Obviously, it's like, we're just further and further into the future of not just streaming, but like all the tech companies like buying their way into Hollywood. Like Apple's already doing it to varying degrees of success. Amazon's doing it to varying degrees of success. We're just seeing now these like multi-billion-dollar companies just being like, whoop, here you go. And it's like, Amazon has officially forced their way into now owning one of the biggest IP in all of entertainment, James Bond 007.
I mean, I don't mean like it's big. It's big. I don't know if like I mean I feel like it's also kind of old. I feel like the last two movies with that were James Bond movies, like even I kind of fell off. Like Casino Royale
Yeah,
was
Greg.
interesting, but apparently like those two movies were a trilogy, and there were a couple, there were a few select James Bond movies that like were direct sequels of their previous ones, but most of them are standalone adventures. And like the Casino
Yep.
Royale one was this huge trilogy, and I think that's I just kind of fell off because like, oh, that's interesting. Like I thought it was interesting. They wanted to go darker. They went more serious. I saw Casino Royale. I didn't see the other two because I just like it just kind of fell off on it. I remember that I remember there was an opening in the second one that was pretty cool, but I didn't see it. I mean, they're
I saw the last
experimenting with
one.
franchises, right? Like they're experimenting with IP and franchises to see if there's a market for that
Yeah,
out there. Is
yeah.
there a market for James Bond? I mean, there was in the '90s. Like they did, Pierce Brosnan did a bunch of James Bond movies that did very well. There was a hit video game. They did a show called James Bond Junior. That was like, it was a real cartoon show and a great theme song. Uh, it-
Yeah.
but like, I mean, some of these things, I don't know if they have that. We're experimenting with IP more than ever that now because it's so different than it was back then. Like now, there's hindsight to owning an IP, and like I knew when MGM sold to Amazon, this was eventually going to happen. But
Um,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like we'll see. Like it's like I said, it's my dad's. Like I mean, I wasn't a huge like I knew of the movies. I've seen a lot of them. There were
right.
great action movies. I guess. They had John Cleese replace Q. I don't even know who the new Q is now for the new movies, but I can't remember. I don't know if it's still John Cleese, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this still has the power, right? Like IPs now, especially go in and out of popularity and trends, and I don't know if this has the same power it did, in the '70s, even the '80s, '60s. Sean Connery, obviously, arguably the best James Bond of all time.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I did see the last James Bond movie, No Time to Die, which came out in 2021. It was pretty good. I liked it.
Did you see the other
It
two,
did.
or just the third one?
He's made like five or six. Greg, the Daniel Craig.
Oh, okay.
He's been in a bunch because he did Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, No Time to Die. That's five. I think it might be five. I don't know if he did
Was No Time
a
to Die
sixth
like a
one.
self-contained story, or what did it have? What did it?
Yeah,
Okay, it was okay.
yeah, it was like his own thing. It was good. I liked it. I'm not like a huge Bond fan. I've only seen a hand. I've seen like maybe four Bond movies. But it was a decent, solid action movie. It did fairly well. Looking at the box office, it did 774 million worldwide at the box office, the fourth highest grossing film of 2021. So still got some sauce to it, I suppose. But I think what a lot of people are worried about now is that it's like Amazon has their hands on it. So like within the next half decade, you're gonna get like multiple James Bond projects. You're gonna get spin-offs. You're gonna get a show. You're gonna get like a higher volume than ever before. Because that was a big thing about the franchise before was that the family that owned the property and that kind of managed that IP were very selective. You know, they were like involved producers with every movie. They were signing off on every casting. They were the ones looking for the actors to play James Bond. You know, they weren't just like signing a check and letting the movie do what it did. So now that it is just in the hands of Amazon, which is kind of a major corporate conglomerate, I think people are worried that that mystique is about to go away very quickly, which it very well might. I don't imagine Amazon having some sort of like special reverence for how it handles 007. But it'll be interesting. It's worth noting that Daniel Craig is done as James Bond. So that's been a big thing for the last 5 years or 4 years since No Time to Die came out is who's going to be the next Bond. And there's been like rumors about them interviewing different actors, doing auditions. I believe the family said they wanted it to be like a dude in like his mid 30s, kind of. Obviously, everyone knows Bond has to have that, you know, the suave, the smooth talking, the sexiness. So we're gonna learn who the next Bond will be and what the next movie will be, probably in the next year or two here, I would imagine. But
Well,
it's
Amazon knows
interesting.
how
I
to do
would,
a
you know,
production. Like they know that. Like they
they
throw
do.
money at stuff.
They,
Like their stuff always looks
yeah, they
great from
do.
a production standpoint. So that I'm not worried with. But like I feel like James Bond specifically now is in that weird phase of licenses. And Donovan, I don't know if you might have been too young to see something like this, but like this isn't your dad's James Bond. You know, like when they come out and they do that thing, it's not your parents blankety blank blank, and it usually crashes and burns. Like this is the
Mhm.
same thing your parents used to like. It's different now, starring Timothy Chalamet. Like, trying to get that young blood into the franchise that's over 60 years old or 70 years old at this point, whatever. 1960s when it came out, I believe.
Yeah, here's one to dive into a couple comments here. Axeman says that he felt that Skyfall was like the weakest of the Daniel Craig movies, but he still liked it. He said, "I've seen every Bond movie and read the Warren Ellis comic." Oh shit! All right, so Axeman is a certified Bond fan.
Bond
I'd be
fan.
curious if you had anybody you want to see play the next James Bond. Danny mentions here, yeah, that a lot of folks wanted Idris Elba. Some people want Henry Cavill. I hear that name a lot, Henry Cavill. Yeah, it could be interesting. I think Idris Elba would have been like the best pick, like
Yeah,
7, 8 years
yeah,
ago.
he'd
It
be
does feel
good.
like that the era has kind of passed by now, but I'd still be down to see it. But like I said, with the family saying they want somebody like mid 30s, seems like they've got a specific idea in mind of what they want. Yeah. By the time they shoot 3 or 4 movies, they'd be in their 60s. That's the thing. Yeah, Bond movies, even when they have one actor, those movies come out like once every 4 to 5 years, if that. Yeah, because Craig's first movie was like in the 2000s. Was it '07? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I was in
Um,
college, so yeah, it was when the first one came out. Yeah, when the first one came out,
yeah,
I was in college.
yeah.
So
He did like
06,
5
07, yeah,
movies over
around
like
there.
15, 16 years. Um,
Timothy Olyphant
yeah,
got too old. Yeah, I mean, they probably need new blood, honestly, at this point.
yeah. It'll be interesting. Because you can go. There's always the like argument, right? Do you go get a no-name person who can kind of just attach themselves to the role and become synonymous to James Bond, or do you get a beloved, sexy actor who fits the age range who will do a good job? Uh, Xmas is Pattinson by default. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Pattinson's one of those names where if you were like putting names in a hat to predict who would be like, if you could go to a sports book and bet money on who's going to get cast as James Bond, Robert Pattinson's like a guy whose name would be on the list. But
Cedric
I don't know if I
Diggory, I
would
don't buy it.
actually
Not for a
love it.
second.
You seen the Batman? That guy can do anything.
I did.
Um, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, great actor. But I don't know. It's always tough with those iconic roles, and then you have actors who are already attached to other iconic roles, right? You look at like Pedro Pascal being cast as Reed Richards, right? When we already know him so well as characters from, I don't know, Mandalorian, Game of Thrones, The Last of Us. We'll have to see how it actually looks and
Yeah, but
feels.
think about how
Oh,
much
let's
time
go.
had passed between Game of Thrones and when his character died and The Mandalorian. Like, it was a while. Like, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's
But
that
how much time
hindsight
passed
thing.
between The Mandalorian and The Last of Us?
Yeah.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years, yeah. And now he's in everything. He's very in demand. Good for him. Good for
He
him.
is. He's a great actor. I thought his skit with Serena Carpenter was funny. The SNL 50th anniversary thing.